There are those wonderful moments in life when you speak before a group that is so near and dear to you that you don't feel like you have to engage in the art of persuasion. You don't feel like you are in the midst of strangers. You know that you are with friends. I can assure you that I feel that way tonight. These were the words that Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. spoke before several thousand Unitarian-Universalists in 1966 at the annual Ware Lecture at our General Assembly in Florida. Quite a guest, huh? That night, Reverend King implored that sea of friends of Unitarian Universalists to not sleep through the revolution. It's a beautiful, beautiful sermon. And it's on our UUA website if you want to go home and read it. But as I reread his words, amid all that is dividing us, all that has us feeling so very alone and powerless, I found myself so hooked, touched, and moved by his knowing himself to be among friends. Friendship is personal. It's tender. And it's intimate. Reverend King was not known for bandying about words just to say words. He meant them. Friendship takes time, and it takes attention. You let your friends into your home. You know their phone numbers and their birthdays. You tell your friends the truth about your life, the real story, that your employers or people you work with might not know. Sometimes your family, sometimes your partner might not know. But your friends might. And we can squabble with our friends. Misunderstandings happen with friends. Hurts. Sometimes we need to sever friendships. And when this happens, we grieve them. It stays with us. We don't take broken friendships lightly. That's how much they matter in our lives. And when we lack for true and real friends, when we find ourselves longing and yearning for them, we feel it so deeply, don't we? It's so personal, friendship. It's love. So personal. And Reverend King knew about friendship, how much it mattered in a human life and in a revolution. Many don't know this about our Unitarian Universalist forebearers, that they weren't only supportive and engaged in the civil rights movement, but many were near and dear friends with Reverend King and those who stood beside him. These were some of the friends that he would call on, the phone numbers he knew by heart, and the companions his arms were linked up with as he marched on Washington and Selma, Mississippi. Reverend King was a Christian, and he wholeheartedly believed that all people were equally created in the image of a loving God, and that humanity is, to quote Reverend King, caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, divine mutuality, tied, he said, in a single garment of destiny. His vision of beloved community is at its heart a relational dream and aspiration, a dream of friendship. Reverend King looked to certain gospels in his life that he regularly preached from, and one of his favorites comes from chapter 12 of Luke about the man who was a fool. The parable that is the source of Reverend King's message about that inescapable network of mutuality. It's about a man who is successful and rich. His crops are so plentiful that he has to build larger barns and newer constructs to support and house his wonderful abundance. And he celebrates his plenty and is so proud of himself, for he has set himself up for a cushy retirement and a life of ease. I have worked hard and I'm going to reap the benefits, he says. Why shouldn't I? But God has different plans for him in this gospel. At the height of his prosperity, he dies. And Jesus calls him a fool. Reverend King preached, "The rich man was a fool because he failed to realize his dependence on others. He has said I and my so often that he has lost the capacity to say we and our. A victim of the cancerous disease of egotism, he failed to realize that wealth always comes as a result of the common wealth. He talked as though he could plow the fields and build the barns alone. He failed to realize that he was an heir of a vast treasury of ideas and labor to which both the living and the dead had contributed. When an individual or a nation overlooks this interdependence, we find a tragic foolishness." He had lost the capacity to say we and our. We cannot walk alone. Those are also Reverend King's words, borrowed from his famous "I Have a Dream" speech. We cannot walk alone. We are caught up in an inescapable network of mutuality. We cannot walk alone lest we become fools. Now, both of these prophets, Jesus and Reverend King, understood that I, me, my will never get us to the promised land. Individualism has us thinking that it's solely up to us, on us, and about us. Individualism tells us that to be self-sufficient and self-reliant and independent is the great American success and freedom story. Individualism, when it sinks its teeth into me, has me moving through the world only thinking about what I want, what I think I need, what people aren't doing for me, or like that fool, staking claim in my wins and accomplishments without regard for all the known and unknown souls, that vast treasury, to whom I would be nothing without. And of course, this we-ness, the antidote to individualism, it requires humility. It requires a daily practice of gratitude, attunement, attention, and pointed appreciation. It requires spiritual fortitude and grounding. It requires the discipline of love. Because relationships are messy. When people don't think alike or do alike or behave according to our standards, we tend to jump ship. It's just what we like to do. Recant the love gather up our toys and leave the sandbox, as some people like to say. And we keep dividing ourselves into these smaller and more whittled down and particular tribes of like-mindedness and like-doingness. They're getting so small now. The world is at its highest population, and yet we're more segregated and cut off from one another than ever before. The powers that be, oh, they like that. They feed and prey and thrive on this division and this minced and conditional love, fear of them. I implore you, and I want to thank the person, I'm not going to embarrass you or call you out, who implored me to listen to this week. So now I'm going to implore you to listen to the Christian State Representative James Tallarico of Texas be interviewed on the Ezra Klein Show. Did any of you listen to him? Okay, good. You got some homework to do if you'll take it up. He notes that the business model depends on us leaving behind our real human relationships. The biggest competitor to these social media platforms, for example, like Meta, is actually not TikTok, it's not X, it's not Snapchat or whatever all these are. It's real human relationships. That's the competitor. He says that we have a whole economy now built on keeping us in our rooms, on our phones for as many hours in the day as possible, and their competitors are the actual messy, complicated, beautiful human relationships that we require to live. To live. Going it alone often feels like the more comfortable choice, but its effects are detrimental to our personal well-being and our collective well-being. And clearly this is something we humans have been struggling with for a long time, for Jesus' main teaching 2,000 years ago was about loving your neighbor. Not at arm's length, but up close, proximate, personal, bound up love. Jesus was like Reverend King, a man who knew about friendship and relationship, and he knew that it was a saving grace. The dream of the civil rights movement, the Me Too movement, Black Lives Matter are resounding calls to love transgender and queer people, indigenous people, refugees, immigrants, those with seen and unseen disabilities, all those who feel and know themselves to be othered and way out there at the margins, invisible. These dreams and calls are for rights and basic human dignities, yes, and they are also dreams and calls to be in loving relationship with one another, centered in a circle of equitable care, known to one another, caught up with one another, called out to and with one another. The story of the civil rights movement, it was never just about a single man. I'm glad that we really spotlight him every year, and I hope it's not just once a year. I don't think that I hope I don't do that. But it was never just about him. And it certainly wasn't about a love meant only for the righteous or a love that only looked one way in the public sphere. It was a story about a collective awakening to love. Activists and citizens, friends being converted into relationship with one another. We see Reverend King at the front of the crowd, but his arms are linked with hundreds and hundreds of dear companions with different backgrounds and faiths and ideas, identities, genders, stories, gathered in the name of love and belonging, connection to and for all. And I'll tell you, one of King's most difficult teachings, which is straight out of the mouth of Jesus again, was that this love cannot exclude anyone, not even our enemies. Hate divides, love unites. Beloved, community is for all. And that inescapable divine network of mutuality, it is not conditional, nor is our universalist faith and theology. All are saved. All are worthy of love. And I needed to take a breath there. And I say it's just one day at a time, one day of trying to love big at a time, and I know it is hard. I don't know if my finite humanness is even capable of it, but I'm willing to try. Maybe our good fight, our rallying cries, all that we lament in the world, all that we lament in our lives, all that we hope for our kids and grandkids, for ourselves, comes down to finding the courage to know and feel with all our heart that we really are caught up in each other's humanity. The ache of humanity, the cruelty of it, oh, and the beauty of it too. The miraculousness of it, the particularities of it, yours and mine, theirs and theirs and theirs. And that feeling this fully in all of its paradox and complexity and mess, overwhelming as it might seem, it won't destroy us. I have to put my faith in this, that it won't destroy us, but rather, strangely and most miraculously, it might save us. The question of what is needed of us now is an important one, and I know that you are discerning this for yourselves with some real seriousness. Some of you have gone as far as sending me emails with questions like, how do I fight, as the subject. Thank you for sending me these emails. Thank you for asking yourself that question. And my answer is, this is your question to answer. This is a question that holds hands with all of life's other big questions. Like, who am I? What is life calling me to be? What is love requiring of me, as I asked last week? Who are you? Who are we? And what great faith helps me make sense of life and death and justice and relationship and all the things in between and beyond that. And these are personal questions that you get this little sweet, precious blip of a life to wrestle with. And to allow these kinds of soulful, contemplative questions to then guide your beautiful life and your relationships and the fight that you were brought into this world to fight. My question to you this morning is, what might you need to do or change or open to in order to outfit and prepare yourself for these kinds of courageous questions answered? What might you need to do in order to heed the answers? And most importantly, whose companionship do you need on the journey? Because we aren't getting there alone, and we aren't learning how to be this and do this alone. Now I'm going to get quiet now, or just put my words aside, which isn't always easy for us preachers. We like to talk and talk and talk. So that I can give Reverend Dr. King the last word. I promise that his words are far better than mine. May they soak our hearts, bodies, minds, words, and deeds through with some courage and hope and unmuddied, unbridled, liberating love this morning and in the days ahead. These words come from a speech entitled, "Where Do We Go From Here?" that he offered in 1967. And so I say to you today, my friends, that you may have the eloquence of articulate speech, but if you have not love, it means nothing. Yes, you may have the gift of prophecy. You may have the gift of scientific prediction and understand the behavior of molecules. Yes, you may ascend to the heights of academic achievement so that you have all the knowledge. And you may boast of your great institutions of learning and the boundless extent of your degrees. But if you have not love, all these mean absolutely nothing. You may even give your goods to feed the poor. You may bestow great gifts to charity, and you may tower high in philanthropy. But if you have not love, your charity means nothing. You may even give your body to be burned and die the death of a martyr, and your spilt blood may be a symbol of honor for generations yet unborn, and thousands may praise you as one of history's greatest heroes. But if you have not love, your blood was spilt in vain. Those who love have the key that unlocks the door to the meaning of ultimate reality. And I've decided to stick with love, for I know that love is ultimately the only answer to humankind's problems. And I'm going to talk about it everywhere I go, he said. Happy birthday, Reverend King. Thank you for your love, for we so need it. Thank you. And thank you for your love, because we so need it. And to that I say amen.